Welcome and Merry Christmas to Breaking Biscuits. Today is our highlight reel for our podcast, and we've got tidbits of gold nuggets throughout this podcast, so stay tuned. Well, welcome to Breaking Biscuits, the experience, and today we want to just share some of our our most impactful moments over our, 14 or 15 weeks that we've been doing this. So we've got several things, several excerpts we'd like to share with you. So let's start out with our very first episode was on the love bomb. So check this out.
Well, me and my wife learned, she told me one day, we've been taught, if you've been in church world like us our whole life, you've been taught to deny yourself, take up your cross and follow, but it's never been really explained what that means. We just thought it meant deny ourselves of everything. And my wife said, what we've been doing is neglecting ourselves. It doesn't say deny yourself, it says neglect, we've been neglecting ourselves. In other words, we don't even claim what we need and what we want and what we desire. And we wound up taking whatever comes in our path and we accept it as love because we're trying to be supportive. And while you were talking, I really realized since love bombing is some form of manipulation and control, do you know that probably we learned it as kids?
Next, we continue our discussion on love bombing, but we talk about image management. So stay tuned and listen to this snippet of truth.
No, I don't know if that makes sense.
To your point, it's creating an image of yourself that you think will be more accepted and therefore more love, because it still goes back to that foundation. Our need inside of us is to be fully accepted and fully loved. So we therefore create an image that we think puts us into a position to receive that. The problem, it first doesn't work. And what I've learned, even in my business life, and we don't have time to share it today, but maybe we'll share it in future podcasts. I've actually learned that vulnerability in the business community, if done the right way, it is a superpower there as well.
Next, our favorite subject on anger and vulnerability. Listen to this clip and see if you recall this discussion.
Because we live in a duality world, a binary world of good and evil. We almost want to invite people in our space and we're pushing them away at the same time. I want you to come but only come as far, but I always equate anger as that vicious dog inside the fence. No one's coming in their backyard. We even say beware of the dog. And what angry people don't know is their anger causes people to even stay away further, and the thing they need the most, they're repelling, and they get further and farther away from a real relationship, and they get more and more angry. But they're the ones that put the sign up, beware of dog.
Right.
It's
Next, let's listen as we discuss the shame cycle.
She said the only way you can describe it is guilt. Guilt and shame are different. Guilt says, I screwed up. Shame says, I am a screw up. And so when people are trapped in that shame cycle, I think that's what we need to talk about today, is this shame cycle that keeps reoccurring and reinforcing that something's wrong with us.
Mhm.
Like, what is wrong with me? I wonder how many men out there, Toby, just and we're talking in relation to anger, like, manifest the anger, and then, and after that big blow up, they get into their space in their head, and I could only imagine that their self-talk is, what is wrong with me? And that's the shame talking. Shame says something's wrong with me, and I think
Right.
that's important.
No, absolutely. But it's that shame thinking that something is wrong with you that causes the shame cycle. Because if you think something is wrong with you and you don't deal with those underlying emotions, then you're just teeing the ball up for the next round of an outburst of anger. And that's why we call it the shame cycle.
Let's take a deep dive into shame and listen to our discussion.
That particular phrase is a Greek phrase. And the meaning in the Greek, it literally says this: it doesn't mean to hate something, to reject it emotionally, but rather to disregard it, to think little of it, to consider it insignificant. And I would argue to say that in this topic that we're on, as relates to anger and shame and grace, the opposite of shame, and we do the very opposite of that when it comes to shame. Like, we do consider it, we do think of it, and we do find it significant in our lives. In fact, sometimes it's paralyzing. So really the question is that I want to ask you is, if shame is speaking to you, and like, how do we get it to silence its voice? How do we do what this definition says? How do we make it insignificant? How do we disregard that voice of shame that so many men struggle with? And the more you and I talk on this topic, I think the more we realize how many men struggle with shame.
You remember when we was kids, for some unknown reason, I'm just thinking of this right now, some unknown reason, these safari movies and Tarzan and all these, even Army movies, they'd always have a quicksand pit.
Right?
I grew up all my life thinking I might fall in a quicksand pit because you can't get out. And to this day, 64 years old, I've never seen one or heard anybody fall in one. But there was always someone with a long branch, rope, something. It was very traumatic to me as a child because you could actually fall into something and couldn't get out. And while you're speaking, talking to a bunch of couples and men, this week, it seems as if shame is kind of like that. It's falling into something that you can't get out. And you remember the quicksand, the harder you struggled, the faster you would go under. Like, it paralyzes you in shame. So you try to be still till someone rescues you. But the rescuer in this case is grace. Grace extends a hand to pull you out of shame, because you can't do it yourself. If you could have, you'd already done it.
Next, let's listen to Mark and I as we discuss the woman with the alabaster box and how that relates to shame and grace.
And then you'd mentioned as well, and I agree with you, I'll let you share, there was another component that she took. You called it risk.
Incredible.
How do you see
risk.
that?
It's incredible risk. Just in that story alone, the lady entered into the home where she wasn't even invited. That's how desperate she was. she ran the risk of being arrested, of who knows what. But what she saw was, I know if I break myself open in front of him, he's worthy of it. What she didn't know is he was going to forgive her and she would find grace. And I think that's the metaphor or the story or the purpose for our talk is when you break yourself open like that, you tap into a realm of grace because Paul said he gives grace to the humble. You can't get any more humble than breaking your heart open and go, I got this mess going on. I'm not a mess, but I'm in a shame storm. So there is a risk involved, but the reward. So I want to ask you, I'm just sitting here thinking while we're talking, and, by the way, if you look.
Next up, Mark and I discuss the fathering spirit. Take a listen to this. Good stuff.
In Jewish culture, the mother nurtures the children, the sons especially, till they're 13, and then they have this, you know what that's called? I don't.
Bar mitzvah.
Yeah, they have a bar mitzvah, and they graduate from the mom to the dad. Now the dad takes them under their wing and starts. But there's something to that about having identity and purpose. And I love what you said at the very first, because when Jesus started his ministry, he got baptized by John. When he came out of the water, there was a booming voice of God, the Father, that said, "This is my son, and I am well pleased in him." That gives you enough energy to do anything forever.
Yeah, it really does. It's like a motivate. We talk vulnerability as a superpower. It's like a motivational superpower to get affirmation, from your father. I know my own.
Listen now as we discuss the spirit of adoption and spiritual fathers.
So no matter what your situation is, there is a Heavenly Father that in his primary objective is to put a spirit of adoption or acceptance. And we should feel more a certain way about that, because when you adopt a child, it's almost like a greater love than just having one. And I don't want to say that in a weird way, but you literally chose this child. You literally said, I'm going to take this child out of this orphan state and bring him into family and let him live as my own. And if that's the kingdom, I'm going to bring you in and let you live as my own son.
Listen in as Mark explains the difference between correction and discipline.
But I want to speak to that correction. A lot of the families that we coach, I try to coach them to, when they discipline their children, to not punish them but correct them, because God doesn't punish us, he corrects us. And you can tell how they were raised by how they view God. So every father listening should understand you are painting a picture for your children of how they're going to view God. Is he going to punish us for our wrongdoing? Discipline for sure. Or is he going to correct and teach us the right way? And be patient. And it's no mystery, Toby. When a couple comes to us and the man's very angry, we've covered that before, I automatically know it's the father's fault. His father's fault. 100%.
Listen as we discuss gratefulness in our Thanksgiving podcast.
We talked a little bit about humility in the past. And when I think about gratefulness, I think about kind of the same lane you're in, is the people that are around me in my life. Am I grateful for them? And then if I am, do I tell them? And then when you think about vulnerability, you have to be vulnerable to be grateful, because you get to kind of drop the walls and begin to speak from the heart and say, especially in a relationship, right? So you and I were talking, earlier, and there's men that have difficulty just telling their wives they love them. So it's that being able to drop your walls and be vulnerable and just say, hey, I just want you to know I'm really grateful for, whatever that might be about their character, their personality, anything that you're grateful for your spouse and your mate. And I just think life gets in the way. It's easy not to do that, Mark. It's easy just to forget to take a moment and just walk up and pause and say, hey, I just want you to know how grateful I am for you doing this, or you being this way. That makes sense?
Oh, man. But we take each other for granted at some point.
Listen with us as Mark talks about the image and likeness of God in our Head or Heart podcast.
That everyone should at least know something about. But in Genesis 1:26, I think it's God said, let us make man in our own image and likeness. A lot of church people, whatever, says you're made in the image of God. But the truth is you're made in the image and the likeness. That's the real truth. And I remember, Toby, about a year or two ago, I just started parking my mind there, and the word image is a masculine noun, and the word likeness is a feminine noun. And I did research, and I said, does the Hebrew matter what's feminine and masculine? That's the beauty about the Hebrew language, is, and the Greek and all those things, is they have a connotation to it, like what they were really trying to mean there. And so when it says, let us make man in our own image, male and female made he them. Which makes sense because males have an X and a Y chromosome. So God is called, our defender, warrior, but he's also El Shaddai, the many-breasted one. He's the father, mother. Like, you can't. It has been said that he's the father and the spirit's the mother. So however you unwrap that, I tend to believe that there's a masculine, I don't want to say male, but a masculine part to our life and a feminine, not a female, but a feminine energy, power part of our life. And one of them is, critical thinking, and logic, and whatever, and the other one's feeling. But you had a really good twist on how to just tell your story, because that's what started this whole thing.
Join us in part 2 of our discussion of being in your head or your heart.
How do you deal with analytical thinking, or those that are very analytical thinkers and critical thinkers? How do you mesh with that? How do you reconcile that when you're interacting with those type of people?
Well, first and foremost is realizing that I need them people in my life. And second of all, I I don't expect everyone to be like me. And I think we should do that with our mates. I think we kind of feel like if you love me, you'd be like me.
Yeah, good point.
And that's not true.
That's not true at all.
And what I was thinking about yesterday, I was talking to my wife, it's like, we listened to this podcast and it said romance comes when one person unveils their soul to another. And that's not critical or emotional. That's a whole nother level. So when you get in this romance storm, this first love, this thing, you bypass all those, then you get together, start doing life and revert back to where you are. But I know who to call when I need analytical, critical thinking. I welcome it and cherish it, and I've adapted and learned how to be more that way. Make a plan my work. We can come to balance. I remember in Proverbs it says false balance is abomination. So there is a need for balance.
In our last clip, we're going to talk about growth versus comfort and individual growth in particular.
So that, let's get this way. How much does individual growth pair into relationship growth?
It's 100%. To me, it's like what's introduced to me is this couple comes to us, me and Kelly, and it's like my trauma met your trauma. We made a bond, but we decided that we're never going to go there again, and we got this relationship. But the reality is nothing was done individually, and it keeps revisiting it. And so, yeah, personal growth, accountability, just working. And when we say working through stuff, we always say working through stuff, but all we're doing is sharing our heart in a vulnerable, transparent way of what really happened and how we felt. And I don't know how to process it with someone that we trust enough that will guide us, not judge us, and not tell everybody. It's pretty much that simple, but it seems so complicated. People can't find that. I have found what our Breaking Biscuits theory is: as we get better, it gets better, the relationship. And
well, that concludes all the clips that we have for you today. And Mark couldn't be here, obviously, but Mark and I would just want to wish everyone out there a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And if you would, share our videos, share our podcasts, hit the like button, comment. We're doing this for you. We hope it brings some value to your life, some insight to your life. We really appreciate those of you that listen and are with us week in and week out. And we'll have more subject matter, more podcasts at the first of the year, and we can't wait to spend more time with you. God bless you. Until next time, this is Breaking Biscuits, and we love you.